Well, welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining for this webinar. I'm super excited about the group of people we've brought together to talk about robotics in hospitality, adoption, and kind of the operational reality. So we'll just kick it off and get started. Well, if you don't know me, I'll introduce myself. I'm Nazpari Aden. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Destination AI. We host an annual conference that's basically all things AI for hoteliers, for brands, management companies, and owners, what you need to know from back of house efficiencies to distribution. And we're doing some webinar series to kind of cover topics that progress throughout the year. And I'm really excited about this one on robotics. So we'll kick it off and have the panelists introduce themselves, starting with Sloan.
Well, hey everybody, Sloan Dean, former CEO of Remington Hospitality for 8 years, and then uh, current podcaster, not done with Sloan Dean. So if you listen to podcasts, check it out, give me a like, and happy to be here. Very passionate about AI and robotics.
Sue, you want to go next?
Sure, absolutely. Sue Graves. I am a former longtime hotelier. I have my own consulting business now, helping solve some of the biggest problems and obstacles in the industry with AI, robotics, and many other things, including sustainability. So I'm super passionate about the industry and about solving some of these problems and helping owners drive EBITDA, helping operators run the operation more smoothly, et cetera, et cetera. Super excited to be here.
Roman?
To see you all. I am Roman, not a robot yet. Maybe one day we'll be replaced by one. I'm the founder and CEO of Casa. We are a leading hotel and apartment hotel brand and manager. We operate 85 very beautiful properties across the US. Some of them are apartment hotels, some are boutique hotels. We built our own tech stack to greatly enhance the efficiency of the P&L, lower costs, improve RevPAR, and we utilize AI throughout. So are on the bleeding edge. My background before that, I was at KKR and Walton Street Capital as an investor in all asset classes, but had a particular focus on hospitality. Deployed $1 billion into the sector, and so saw the opportunity to build a differentiated management platform as a former owner.
And last, Ried.
Hello, good morning. I'm Ried Floco, president of TechForce Robotics. Been in the tech world for about 20 years. The last 3 years, really been working on the robotics side of it, development, hardware, software, AI, and how they all work together. I do have a secret for the previous 30 years, and currently I've been in the hotel business as well, starting in housekeeping, front desk, maintenance, all the way up to general manager, district manager, area manager, vice president, director, overseeing several billion in real estate. So kind of seeing it all the way from dirt to development and then operations, greeting the guests, prior to their arrival, but greeting them at the door and getting them all the way through the process. So it's nice to be here today. Thank you.
Okay, amazing. Well, thank you all so much for joining. Before we dive into the questions we've prepared today, I wanted to just give kind of an overview on robotics in hospitality. We're pretty early in hotels truly adopting robotics, and right now the market is valued at about 760 million, but expecting to be about 3 times in the next 5 years. So definitely one of the fastest growing hospitality tech segments. So I think kind of educating today on what's going on and what's coming in the next 5 years is super important. And then also how it can really address the labor market. So this audience today is mostly hoteliers, owners, management companies, and brands. So everyone's aware of the staffing challenges for hotels. About 65% of US hotels have reported staffing shortages last year. 71% have had openings they could not fill, and the average turnover rate is about 60 to 80% with an $8,000 to $9,000 replacement cost per employee. And then lastly, 40% of hotel workers are more likely to get injured versus other service workers. So there's a ton of opportunity for robotics, and I'm excited to kind of dive in. So first question I kind of wanted to ask was, what robotics use cases do you think are mature enough today that an asset manager should underwrite them versus treat it as kind of a tech experiment? And anyone who wants to can kick it off.
I'm happy to take that initially if you'd like. So, traditionally in the, hotel environment, you would end up, spending 30 to $50,000 on a robot and then having to learn how to manage that robot and be able to have it as an assistant to a team member, let's just say. I think the world has changed. What we've done is gone to more of a subscription model. So you don't have to have any seasoned people or trained people on your team. It's about implementation. So, I think that's where the world is going in regards to robotics, in regards to actually a company providing the robot, let's just say a housekeeping assistant, which then moves dirty linens and trash off a floor autonomously down elevators, through back a house, out to the trash bin. I think that's where it's evolving to. I think it has not been there, but it is there today.
Yeah, I think the things that stand out to me and having been an operator at scale for many, many years, and then looking at it from the lens of this last year, I went to MIT. I've done a lot of research, had a lot of people on my podcast from various backgrounds. There's a few use cases that I think everyone should be looking at today. One is security. There's really good robotics around, protecting commercial buildings. Security, particularly overnight security, is very expensive. Um, and whether you're in Vegas or in New York, et cetera, there's a lot of just it's not even robotics. It's good camera systems, AI recognition, and then there's some security robots that I think can cleverly augment that labor pool. Secondly, I think you're not seeing it in a hotel at scale, but you're seeing quick serve restaurants have purpose-built kitchens where you can save a significant amount of unskilled labor in the kitchen. So line chefs, et cetera, not necessarily replacing a chef or a sous chef, but but it's purpose-built automation in the kitchen. And then I think also you've had a lot of testing on the fringes, and Ried can probably speak this better than anybody on robotics kind of doing public space cleaning. If you've been to Vegas, you've probably been seeing the big robots, um, clean ballrooms and public corridors. I think the use cases on that are getting much better. The challenge is even when we tested at Remington, I tested my big convention hotels, you don't have a one-for-one person replacement. So you may have a slight improvement in cleanliness, a slight improvement in productivity, but if you look at the actual P&L, if you're doing a lease or even the CapEx cost up front, didn't offset, you didn't get enough labor savings to justify it. I think we're getting into a period of time where if you're a big enough hotel and enough square footage that maybe you can eliminate one or two positions for that efficiency. But I think that a lot of the use case testing hasn't gone so far to say, okay, we're going to augment or replace this job. But I think, security is an easy use case that often gets overlooked.
Yeah, I would I would agree with that. And perhaps I'm the perspective on this of the uh, excited about that technology, but skeptic about its immediate impact. I think the right approach is more experimentation at this moment than expecting a significant ROI, but the technology is very rapidly maturing, and so that will change over the next few years. I say this from my background is half real estate, half computer science. My brother actually is in robotics. His robots have sent 2 billion packages for Amazon. He helps automate a lot of the work that is in their warehouses. And so we have very robust dinner conversations about this. The challenge, they have a more limited challenge in hotels because they design their warehouses. They often look very similar to each other. But in the hotel world, we have very diverse spaces, very diverse types of jobs that need to happen. And as a result, even point solutions, which are where I've seen the best robotics, apply right now, kind of don't as cleanly enhance efficiency because you kind of have to you still have the same amount of labor just kind of trying to work around the capabilities of the robots that exist. I totally agree with Sloan that cameras and AI assisted review of those is a very kind of a hybrid use case of AI and kind of the spirit of robotics. Another is QAing rooms. So our housekeepers either take photos before and after photos or take videos of the room, and then you can automate the review of the cleanliness of the rooms, and that's very low cost in terms of the actual hardware, but very high ROI. And so that's where we've been spending more time while considering robots as let's understand it and be prepared to ensure our properties can deploy them when they're ready. But right now, treat them more as an experimentation phase than they're ready to really deeply integrate. So that maybe I'm going to be the skeptic on the panel. Hopefully that's healthy here, but that's our perspective.
I think also too, Roman called out it's something important that if you really want to look at what's cutting edge, I would call out two things. One, China. China has over 1,000% more robots in actual business functions than the United States does. They're the leader in the world. And then secondly, Amazon. Roman called that out. Now, I agree, their spaces are purpose built. That's very different than hotels that were built in the 1920s and you're trying to retrofit. So our space has like a limiting factor until robotics gets more advanced. But Amazon actually has over 50% of the robots in use in the United States is Amazon alone. So you basically have Amazon and then the rest of the United States. So if you really want to learn, look at those two use cases, what's happening in China and what's happening in Amazon, and see how you can be applying that in a hospitality business in the States.
From my perspective, I think, delivery robots, cleaning robots, logistic robots, but it has to be the type of hotel that can accommodate that. To what everybody's already previously said, you've got so many varied, types of hotels. We don't have a humanoid robot that can climb stairs yet. Things like that. The elevator integration is a huge obstacle because the cost of that can be anywhere between 20 and 30, sometimes $40,000 for the integration for the robot to actually make the delivery. So that's partly why the market is not moving faster with robotics. It's the integrations that have to take place. And until that's fixed, there's not a one-to-one ratio of a staff member and a complete helper to drive ROI on robotics yet. Still needs
I will tell you,
human touch.
I think, forgive me, I think it's changing quickly though. Like
it is.
We can do an elevator implementation for $5,000 to $10,000 now. Our robots do have the ability to call an elevator, be able to schedule around other robots that are in the facility. Let's just say you're moving like trash from a hallway or dirty linen from a hallway. It will be able to call, open a back of house door, call an elevator, and be able to take that all the way down to its final destination, and it knows where it's going. So, and we're implementing in older buildings, we're implementing in newer buildings. So the technology's changed tremendously, just even in the last like 6 months. But we've been working on making them fully autonomous, and we're there, and that's what we've been able to implement. So I think again, you're never going to eliminate full humans. I don't think you should, quite frankly, in the hospitality business. I think that there has to be a savings though, and a labor savings, and we do see it in our own operations though, in our own hotels we operate and have been running them for 2 years now. And it goes past just room cleaning. We have, in a convention center, we have the ability to pour, let's say a drink every 6 to 12 seconds, depending how many, BIMI robots we have in place, rather than a human taking 90 seconds. So there are cases that you could look at where I think the advances are coming and coming very quickly.
Yeah, I definitely see that. And this actually brings me to the next point. Then I wanted to go further on what Sloan and Sue were talking about China. Why do you think specifically adoption has been harder in the US? When I was in China in 2018, I remember asking for a towel and a delivery robot brought it to my room. So now 8 years later, we still don't see that in the US. Why do you think that is? Whether it's like unions or brand standards, what are your takes there?
I think it's fragmented ownership that leads to it. I think it is unions and brand constraints. I think independent boutique hotels can move faster just because of that. From a brand standpoint, you have so many the ownership levels so fragmented. Some want it, some don't, and so And there also is not a clearly modeled case in the US. It is growing and adoption will be there. It's just going to take a few years, I think. And the efficiency gains have to be, 30 to 40% or higher in order to make the ROI case run. And I think, a sub 3 year payback is what owners should be looking at. And unless those KPIs can be proven out, that's part of the lack of adoption in the US, plus the total cost of it compared to China. Their robots are significantly cheaper.
Yeah, I think Sue hit on a few of them. I would say it is societal. It is a kind of age of infrastructure, and then vertical integration in the real estate industry in China. Let me unpack that. So you have a society where you have a communist country. They can dictate the government actually owns a lot of real estate, a lot of businesses, and should they want to do something, they can go do it easier and implement easier. And that has been, seen across, if they can stand up cities. When COVID happened, they built a hospital in a couple of days. So just their
Yeah.
engineering ability, and then just the way that they're societally set up. The counter to that is you have American exceptionalism. And so in America, you have like the best venture capital, the best capital markets. We take business risks differently than Europe and China. But China has this culture where they are the common thing about like vertical integration. They have a political system that affords like more control. They also, while they're suspicious of maybe technology, their technology is used. I mean, the government has they have cameras everywhere. They're more technology forward of like asserting themselves, enforcing a change. So that's the kind of the societal thing. They also are culturally more adoptive of technology. In certain ways, in use cases, you also don't have the labor unions. That is part of a point that impacts like slow adoption in the United States. And then the other thing, if specific to the hotel industry, is that they have vertical integration, meaning you'll have like Jing Jiang owns the real estate. They are the manager. They are the
Yeah.
brand. Even when you have the U.S. brands, they're through master license agreements where the controlling party is in China, maybe even the Chinese government. And so they can just move faster and spend money on technology versus in the United States. Part of the problem with tech adoption in the hotel industry is you have thousands of owners, thousands of operators, brands or oligopolies, and they don't force certain things. So it's all that kind of cumulatively means that the U.S., at least when it comes to robotics, is way behind, and way behind when it comes to robotics and hospitality.
Well, one of the
And
drivers, though, Sloan, is going to be, we have an aging population. China's population is aging faster than American population, but the average age of a housekeeper is 48 years old. So at some point in time, the 48-year-old's not going to be cleaning rooms anymore, and you don't have a 20-year-old coming behind him. So, there's going to be forced adoption because the labor gap is going to be growing, growing, and growing. And by 2035, you will see robots in hotels everywhere.
Well,
I
and I
agree
think
with
you have to
that.
look at it.
I agree with that too. I mean, I do think we have societal changes and we have a labor shortage, which you'd argue, some of the geopolitical or short-term answers,
Yep.
immigrants want to have some of these jobs, but I completely agree with you. I think at scale, you fast forward 5 to 7 years, there will be robots in all hotels.
Yep.
And it'll be a robot as a service, right? It's you're not
Yeah,
going to
yeah,
go
for
out and
sure.
buy
For
the
sure.
robot, right? The reality of it is you're going to want someone who specializes in implementation, training, and support. You're not, as a individual property owner, going to go out and buy your own robot. So that's
yeah,
kind of where we filled in the gap and said, listen, we'll take all the hardware costs, software costs, support, training, all that on,
Yep.
and then be able to just deploy. You don't have a complicated lease, you don't have anything. And we're focused on, if you don't get an ROI, if you don't break even in month one, then honestly we shouldn't be there. But we
I
will.
think that
And the
I think
reality
the
is,
challenge of that model, Reed, though, is that if you look at services as a software and software companies as a software, is that one of the things we don't talk about is they're part of the value leakage issue going away from owners, and that you have a cost problem that owners are bearing today. Well, if part of the solution is robotics, you can't just say, well, I'm one to one eliminating a housekeeper and then doing this like software as a service or a fleet as a service business, there has to be some economics coming back to the hotel owner. And I think, the fragmentation of the hotel industry is actually part of why hotel owners have been, in game theory, been flanked by all these other providers because they don't have any economies of scale of negotiating. You look at like the airlines, the cruise, gaming, they're oligopolies, unfortunately. And so I think as we think about like future, I do think there'll be situations where certain large sophisticated owners, operators will want a CapEx solution and a part where they have more control, can save more of this, and rather than just outsourcing to you, Reed, and saying, well, solve it for me. I don't disagree that'll be a lot of the industry because fragmented owner operators, regional small players are not sophisticated to bring it in a meaningful way. But just going out and outsourcing innovation, that's not really done well for the hotel industry today. That's what we currently have.
Yeah, I mean, if you come spend a day with me, you might I can get you a different perspective because where we're installing, like in Sacramento right now, it's going to take 2 or 3 days to put a robot in place and immediately start taking that pressure off the team. What we deal with in the hospitality business is the call outs. All of a sudden you have a board of, 14 rooms you got to clean today. Someone calls out. Now you have 18 rooms, 16 rooms to clean. Who's helping the team? Nobody. So I sit here and say, you know what? If I could take the dirty linens, you put the dirty linens in a bin and the robot takes it to the laundry room all day long, 20 hours a day, then it alleviates that pressure. And that's what we see in our hotels. That's what we see with our customers' hotels. So again, I think that it's easy to look at the past. I think the early adopters did struggle. Absolutely. Because there's no support. There's no, how do you take a hotel operator and say, here, can you, code a robot? Can you make it autonomous? Can you get it to work on an elevator and open a door? And historically, you couldn't. And that's what we focus directly on. So I would love to have you come spend a day with me. I think I can show you some ways we're succeeding here.
Well, you're cutting the steps, right? The steps of the housekeeper. You're cutting the steps of the houseman or the housekeeper. If the houseman doesn't have to go down to the laundry room to get linen for the housekeepers, I mean, that's just a repetitive task that's a waste of time, and the houseman doesn't really want to do it. So have a robot do that. So I think what we need to look at is how are we taking off the repetitive, really difficult,
Exactly.
vacuuming, the push and pull that causes injuries. How do we take the repetitive tasks off the human and give it to the robot to do so the human can focus on the stuff that a robot can't do? And then, then you have to have somebody own it. You have to have a champion at the hotel because I've talked to some hotels and they get this robot and then nobody's a champion and the robot sits in the corner and you're just dusting it off every month instead of having somebody champion that and own that piece and make it work, because that's where you're losing on ROI is if you're not having that robot as a real piece of the staff. I mean, it really needs to be part of the staff.
No, this is a great
My gut is that what in terms of whether you're gonna do it as a service or buy it. I mean, my instinct is both will be options. That's the case in a lot of industries. You can lease your car, you can buy your car, you can rent furniture, you can buy furniture, and ultimately it's a decision born out of the return on capital, your cost of capital, and your expertise in implementation. How often what is the depreciation of the asset and your view of how quickly they'll be obsolete. And maybe in a world where the offer is we'll update the hardware as it becomes obsolete, that might be a different decision for someone in a period of rapid change in the technology than when the robots are more stable in their capability. And so I would fully expect there will be both options, and depending on the type of owner and operator, renting versus buying will be and the marketplace is competitive. So companies will come out and offer to sell where they think that's the wedge to win versus companies that offer to rent. So that's our and it's just going to be a different answer for different folks. I thought, Sue, what you said was super interesting around demographics. I'd recently been to Japan, and I think Japan's maybe a closer parallel to what's happening. They're about a decade into thinking about robotics in a lot of places, but hospitality is one of them. For them, demographics really force the issue. They have a
Yep.
very aging population, and they have very limited immigration. It's a very homogenous country, and so they really need automation in order to fill the gaps where there's not enough labor to provide to the properties. Well, guess what? The U.S. is at historic lows of immigration,
Yep.
and we have well below replacement rate in terms of the number of babies born, and our population is aging. So we're sort of seeing, by looking into the past to Japan, we're seeing the future potentially, if things don't change. These things are dynamic of the U.S. And then, but Japan had some interesting additional things. There's a big techno culture in Japan. There's a tremendous amount of investment in industrial robotics. They have Kawasaki, and SoftBank's an investor in robotics. The U.S. is onshoring a lot of that manufacturing right now, but we're behind. And the government also made it a priority to invest in robotics. I think Abe had a robotics pledge or something of the sorts, and in like around a decade ago. And the U.S. is much more forward leaning on AI. We are more about building the
I would
brain than
agree
we
with
are
you,
the
Roman, on
body.
that for sure. Yeah, I would agree with you on that. But yeah, there's going to be, I mean, the gap, I don't know, Naz, I sent you the gap. And maybe if you have that, you could share that number, but the gap that's growing for, with the current labor scarcity that's going to become even more scarce, and the aging population, I mean, it's coming to a head, you guys. I mean, the ratification of the union agreement in New York is a good example. I mean, over the next 5 years, housekeepers are going to make $62 an hour, 61 an hour. I was a housekeeper. Go housekeeping. It's the hardest job in a hotel. I agree. At the same time, you got a housekeeper making $100,000 a year, and a robot costs you 20 and maybe 10 or 15 in 5 years. So how do you offset that cost? It's not to say that you would replace the human, but how can you keep the human at that wage rate operating at a high value and let the robot do this complete heavy lifting, repetitive tasks that keep our 48 and 58-year-old housekeepers that we're going to have for the long term? That's where the two meet.
No, I think that's a really great point. And there was actually a question in the chat that I think kind of ties us into how to adopt robots into a hotel. And the question is, what do you recommend the hotel HR departments do to integrate the robot in the systems and policies when the department evaluations are conducted by brands and performance reviews in the F&B department fails in room? Sorry, this is a long question. If the F&B department fails in room service, who will be held accountable? The robotics company or the F&B department manager? I think that's an interesting question, but just the overall topic of integrating the robots into the teams and how to introduce that is a topic I wanted to go into.
Yeah,
I think how you introduce it is you talk to the housekeepers and ask them, do you really like, doing XYZ? And it's all the heavy lifting and repetitive tasks they don't like to do. I was a housekeeper. I've had carpal tunnel surgery already and everything, so I've lived it. It's very, very difficult to haul dirty linen down a hallway. And even for the housemen. So what can we do to offset and paint the picture of what would it look like if 30 to 50% of that heavy lifting and repetitive task load were taken off you and you could just save steps and do XYZ in a room? I mean, they're going to love it.
I think this is why this is part of the reason robotics has not come to hotels in a meaningful way. If you look at how work happens, a hotel today, I ran 170 of them at Remington, that they were not, I got in the business 20 years ago, 21 years ago. The hotels are not staffed all that different than they were 21 years ago.
Right.
And so we work in an industry that is very real estate intensive, very labor intensive, but we're also not, we're innovative when it comes to design aesthetics the make and feel of the hotel, but we're not innovative in how the work gets done. Other and Amazon is a great example of reimagining how
Right.
work gets done. And so as you introduce robotics, you have to reimagine not just what Sue's saying of eliminate potential hazards of, okay, where are the places people get injured? So you draw down workers' comp insurance costs, but you also
Yep.
have to reimagine about what is the impact of the guests and the efficiencies that I can get, and then how am I changing the standards, the training of the humans I do have? And that's where I think, as you've had robotics introduction, there's not a one-for-one trade. You can't take a human and place a robot today. And so you have to think about, I'm going to introduce a robot to augment the entire team. Well, how did the work standards for the humans change? How does the labor standard for that position change? And then the interaction with the actual robotics. Ultimately, though, back to the original question, the humans are going to be accountable. We are
Yep.
accountable. It's the GM's going to be accountable for a brand standard service delivery. You can't go blame the robot because you're implementing it. You're the fleet manager for that. So there's almost this whole category of, if you're introducing robotics, an advisory service, or you need to think through how do you transform the work of the humans that are interacting with them. But the accountability is always going to come back to the human, at least in the next 10, 20 years,
Yeah, but
unless we
Sloan,
help.
you
And
also have these robots also have dashboards. So, the
Right.
delivery robots and the cleaning robots, like SoftBank put out, Wiz, okay, the vacuum robot, and they have a dashboard that tells you what they, the square footage they cleaned, what they
Right.
picked up. So there are accountability measures for most robots that are transparent. But to your point, at the end of the day, the human's responsible for it. You still have to move that robot to the next floor, but it'll ping you
The,
when it's done.
Well, and I think you
but
have you have systems that are already in place that you just augment, like you have, review scores, average check commitment
Yep.
in the restaurants. You have cleanliness, that you still hold yourself accountable to those standards, and you just have to measure that. And to Sue's point, as you like take a housekeeper, for example, you have how many boards did they, how many rooms did they clean on their board that day? What were their, cleanliness scores? Did they hit the productivity standard you expect? As
Yep.
you introduce robots, you have to have like almost a robotic like equivalency that then flows in. And then you have a housekeeping team that you're holding accountable. They're just part of the team. Like Sue said, treat the robot like another team member. That's what you have to do. But you also then have to change the humans in that loop too. It can't just be the robot.
I,
I think
I disagree. I mean,
perception might be sorry the
oh, go
perception
ahead.
might be might be backwards from an HR perspective. There's a worry of job replacement that is a natural anxiety, but I'm that is very far away. I mean, a world where a housekeeping job, as an example, which I agree is backbreaking, difficult, should be highly respected work, in a world where that job can be replaced, is a world that is if when that happens, assuming it happens, we have much wider societal questions to answer, because that means a tremendous amount of other labor in other industries that's physical can also be replaced. I am certain many white collar jobs will be automated far below before that happens.
Yeah.
So in some ways, the housekeeping job is maybe in a world of great uncertainty right now that all the AI labs are
That's the
projecting.
safest job, right,
It
Roman?
might be the safest job. And so
Yeah,
the
I agree.
framing in my head is that robotics actually takes away the hardest and most
Yep.
backbreaking and repetitive work. That's probably where it's best suited. It might not even deliver the ROI savings, because you're maybe not reducing labor as much as you'd expect, but it is increasing the job satisfaction, which frankly is extremely important for your on-site team, and that will increase the guest scores, which then increases revenue. And look, at the same time, we've seen this in our off-site or back office roles. So where Casa has really focused its time and attention is, and there's so much in the P&L here, is on automating night audit and accounts payable and bank reconciliation and revenue management. And when we do that, we've actually grown the teams in many cases, but then we've elevated their role from, doing things that are mechanical and very kind of tedious to now strategic. And so now they're over, to Sloan's point, you're overseeing the work. You have a much broader purview you, and you're at a much higher leverage point as a team member. We've also grown our portfolio, so we've seen our efficiency measures greatly increase while increasing the automation on the back end, and AI can do that today. And I think that's a useful case study to what I expect the trajectory of what will happen in robotics as well.
Yeah, and I would like to just add, in our hotels and in our customer hotels, if we take our robots that take the dirty linen and trash away from the guest rooms down to the proper locations, if we took those away, our customers would revolt. The employees there will not be happy having the robots taken away, because now it's become normal. It's them moving dirty linen and trash from the rooms is unheard of. And so, if you try to, take that away at this point, they adapt. I mean, the reality of it is they want less stress, less pressures. I've been a house person as well, and it is a tough job to move trash 8 hours a day, move dirty linens 8 hours a day. So give that task that's really no human should have to do. Quite honestly, it's unsanitary, it's hard, it's heavy, it's a waste of their time. Give it to a robot, let it do it. It'll do it autonomously. And I agree. Listen, historically, it hasn't been that way. But again, I think that, if you're not open to looking at what's happening actually today, which is actually working today, I think you're missing the boat and you're not really helping your team. Because this, at the end of the day, we're all in hospitality. We're here to take care of our people. At the end of the day, we should be given the tools. Sue, you and I probably grew up when we were cleaning rooms. There weren't enough vacuums. I'd use a broom.
Yeah, exactly.
That day doesn't exist anymore. Could you imagine trying to clean a hotel with no vacuum anymore? So again, this is just another tool to help the people.
Definitely.
That's a good question that just came up, by the way, about future.
Yeah, I was just going to call out that question. Sloan, do you want to answer that or read it?
Sure. If you want to read it, and then I'll jump in.
Sure. So this is from Rich Levins. Can we potentially get some more examples of what robotics and hospitality may look like in the next 3, 5, and 10 years into the future? We talked about vacuum robots and the houseman robot, linen movers, the kitchen fast casual cook robots, but what else on the horizon? I think that's a great question.
Oh,
Yeah, I'll give a few, and then I'm sure
I've got plenty.
I would say, I think it's already been said, but I think the stripping of beds, the handling of linen, as Ried kind of referenced, that there'll be purpose-built robots. They already exist today, but they'll be used at scale. Of the number one workers' comp claim in housekeeping is actually a middle-aged person throwing their back out, stripping the bed, because it's a king mattress. It's heavy. They're throwing it around. The linens are heavy. The linens are soiled. And so I think you'll have you'll have a housekeeper paired up with a robot that then goes in and strips out the linen, takes the soiled linen, drops the heavy new linen off, and they're paired up with that. Almost like you could imagine there's a vacuuming robot that is on the laundry cart. And so instead of having a housekeeping department of 15 or 20, you maybe have 12. They're cleaning more on their board, but the job quality actually goes up because you're getting rid of some of the hazards and the unpleasantness of the job. I think you then will start in the next 3 to 5 years have purpose-built laundry facilities where instead of now this is difficult for current, but where you'll have hotels where the laundry has got a lot of automation, and you can have a partial person in there instead of 2 dedicated, 3 dedicated, 4 dedicated laundry full. I then also think you will have purpose-built kitchens that will eliminate, and that is more like you think about an auto plant. It's purpose-built into the actual kitchen itself. And then I think also we'll also see, a lot of robotics and kind of facility management. And that maybe that's not even physical robots. Currently today, you can bring AI on a facilities on building to augment energy consumption. And so I think, energy is one of the utilities. It tends to be between like 3 to 5% of revenue. It's one of the most meaningful, and I think there are ways that you can bring, it's not necessarily robotics, but automation into that to draw that down. Those are a few that I would call out.
Yeah, I think you're right on, Sloan, but I also think in its current state, we have robots that are being built for a single task. Okay. So you have a delivery robot, then you have a vacuum robot, in 1 to 3 years or less, well, not less than one, we're going to have multitask robots. So imagine a robot being able to help the bellman push a bell cart with a lot of luggage from a family of 6 up to a room. Instead of running back downstairs to get the other bell cart or get another bellman, you have a robot that helps you bring that up. 60-pound load level, right? So then that robot, when it's done helping in that area, the robot can then move to room service delivery. So from room service delivery, from 4 to 11, the robot takes the room service delivery or the third-party operator, the door dashes up to a guest room autonomously. Then when they're done with that, they go in the laundry from 11 at night till 7 in the morning, and the robot folds towels all night. So it's ready for the shift in the morning and can even move the towels up to the respective floors and have it ready for housekeeping. So that's being built now. And I'm working with a robotics company we're testing that now in several hotels. So we're moving there pretty quickly. And so the multitask robot is something that everybody should be looking at in the very near future, not just a single robot that does a single task, because then you just have a bunch of robot licenses that do one thing. So
Yeah.
Well,
I agree
I
with
think
that
it's
to an extent. I would just add, if you look at like the US company that is the most advanced in robotics, and feel free to disagree, is Figure AI. They're already valued at 20 or 30 billion. They're not focused on hospitality, they're focused in-home. They have a humanoid robot that can clean a kitchen. They can then
yep,
do task stuff. The problem is the hardware is $250,000. And then it really is the brains of like, then you have good AI models that then inform the robot itself. I do think that cost will come down over time. And like Sue said, you will at some point hit an inflection point where you have like to like one replacement. You have these robots that do a lot of different tasks. The challenge with that, though, I have yet to see it scale like where the hardware is cost effective yet. It's
yeah,
like,
it's there.
yeah.
it's
I'll
Well,
send you the
it's
video,
there.
Sloan.
And I
okay.
think what we are failing to recognize, guys, is there's a robotic connective network that has to happen, because I don't think you're going to be in a position where you can have one robot do everything. I think it's going to be able to do many things, but not everything. So I think you are going to have 5, 7, 10 different robots. We have 15 robots right now. They all connect together through a network, so they communicate with one another. So if one, you'll get to the point where you're going down a hallway and you see a dirty plate on the ground from room service,
Yeah.
and a robotic arm will go out and pick it up and will put it and take it away to the kitchen. I'm sure of it. And as it's leaving, it will be telling another robot that it should come up and vacuum, or there needs a mop robot, and which is a whole different type of equipment. And that mop robot will come up and mop it. So that day is really close right now.
Yep.
And so I think it's going to come down to really the software's connecting. Hardware is hardware. I mean, at the end of the day, you need specialized hardware that is going to accomplish a task. But the AI, the vision, the learning, the multimodal, all that connecting is critical. And we're on the cusp of all of it working at one time. And so it's, I think you're going to see where the bell cart is going to be robotic. The deliveries are going to be robotic. The linens will be taken out. The dirty trash will be calling, dirty trash bin in a mall scenario, let's just say, or in a convention center is going to say, hey, bin number 103 is full. Come
Yep.
pick me up and
Yep.
replace me. That day's here. We already produce it. So and the reality of it is that I think that it's going to become more, connected
Prevalent.
more than anything.
Yeah.
Hey,
I'd say
Reed and Sue, what is the useful life? And sorry, Roman, what is the useful life today? So if you have a robot that's multitask, what is kind of the cost of that? And then what is the useful life of it, right? If it's, running all the time, what is the useful life of the actual hardware?
Yeah, so like on a trash or like what we call our Timmy bot, which it moves trash and dirty linens out of a hotel. We've been running ours for 2.5 years in 2 locations. And So we're still able to operate them. We typically will have a cost for a customer of, depending on the facility, roughly, let's say, $2,000 to $3,000 a month. But we do all the software, all the hardware, all the coding. You have an app. You can override the robot. The robot could be completely autonomous. So there's no real heavy lifting from a customer's point of view. But again, we're a different business model. We came at it from a whole different way. We believe that there has to be someone who knows the technology, who can implement the technology, who you can call, or the robot will call us, or
Yeah.
reach out to our AI and fix it, and can learn your facility continuously. I think that is critical for long-term success. Again, that's why, 2, 3 years ago, when you're looking at it and you're just saying, hey, I'm buying hardware for lack of better words, buying a piece of equipment and I got to learn how to fix it and maintain it and operate it. Those days are gone. That's not going to happen. It's going to fall on another company to do it. And you're going to have full rights to alter it. Let's just say you're seasonal. And you want to bring a robot in for 9 months and then get rid of it for 3 months and scale it back. Fine, it goes sits in a corner and you're not paying it for 3 months while it's sitting in a corner. But you shouldn't be paying for something that's not working, and
Right.
someone should be stepping up to fix it, and it shouldn't be the hotel.
Right. But
Yeah.
you guys, don't you think, I mean, we're on the cusp. I mean, we're kind of there, but think about it, Ried, you've already moved to RAS, right? So we moved from SaaS to RAS. We're moving from API to MCP. We're moving from, I mean, the vernacular in the industry and in every industry is rapidly changing. And I think, there's an education piece that we're all missing here, I think, and that's part of change management. So we want adoption. You can't just toss a robot in a hotel. There needs to be a lot of education, which is why I'm really glad that we're having this session. Thank you, Naz. But the education piece is critical to this. And I watched the last question come through. No, we're not ready to have a robot greeting a guest and checking them in. I think that can be later on. I know they tried that in Japan. They had it was like 3 or 4 years ago. They had dinosaurs checking in guests. They completely got rid of that hotel. It was like a 100% robotic
Yeah.
hotel. Do you guys remember that? But
This was I think it was the Henna Hotel, or
yeah, it
something like
was.
that.
Yes, Roman,
The
it
string
was. It was like 3 years
means
ago.
strange, I think, in Japanese. Although I speak very little Japanese.
No,
But
you remember though. That's what it was. It was the Hana Hotel, but they've gotten rid of that.
I think we'll
and
continue to see kiosks come into the front desk experience. But let's be honest. I mean, what we all hope is that the robots replace the mundane, and then
Yes.
we put the human back in host. I think we're still in this, for at least the next several decades, where humans want to be hosted by humans. And, I really hope that, I think there's efficiencies though. Instead of having a front desk of 20 in Vegas when you check in, there's a kiosk option, there's a straight to room option, but then you still have a human host experience. And so, as a hospitality person first, technologist second, is that we put the human back in host.
Yeah.
That's why we all got in this business. So, the day that you show up and it's just a robot checking you in, uh, it'll be interesting. I mean, they might be better at empathy one day. I don't think that happens in the next couple decades. So,
We
my
did an
perspective is very
interview at
similar to
High Tech, you guys, it was a call out session. There was an interview done with a robot at High Tech. And Naz, you probably know
You told me about this, yeah.
Yeah, I told you about it. I wasn't in the session, but I've interviewed him. Anyway, and the robot showed a lot of empathy, believe it or not. It's come a long way.
Sue, I need to have
audience was
that
able to
robot
ask
you on my
questions.
podcast. We need to do like a Sue and robot debate.
Yeah, I'll interview the robot, but yeah, it was interviewed on stage, and it was surprising the amount of empathy that the robot showed. Like, one of the questions went from a static question, which you would think would be normal to ask a robot, to somebody in the audience said, you know what, I'm checking in, I'm coming in for a funeral. My father just passed away 3 days ago. And the robot actually empathized with that. It was pretty amazing. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think we're gonna
It's a
get
little
there, but it's
different
not gonna
when
take the place of the human.
when the robot empathizes with you. I think humans probably they're going to do studies on this, and people will feel the empathy a little less. Is my hunch, but I don't know. I mean, look, my little bit to add is this conversation came to mind. An economist quote that I think has been true for a while, that things take longer to happen than you think they will, but then they happen faster than you thought they could. It's like
Yeah,
I
that's
remember a decade ago
well said.
when I was at Stanford, we had people saying self-driving is 2 years away in 2015, in 2016, and 2017 came around, and there were no self-driving cars on the streets. And today, and so we were in the longer than you think they will category, but right now we're in the faster than you thought they could category. There are 3,000 Waymos. Last year there were 1,500 Waymos. The year before there were 750. When you double something every
Yeah,
year, it
makes a
sneaks up on
difference.
you. And by the way, there's also a bunch of Chinese. Zoox is on the market. There's 4 Chinese self-driving companies.
Yep.
Tesla is going to light up a bunch of self-driving cars when FSD 15 comes out soon. And so that's already here, and it's happening faster than we think we could.
Yep.
And in 10 years, general purpose robotics, a lot of things will, Ried, you said it, a lot of the tech, why this happens is a lot of the input technologies come together all at the same time. And then scale and automation leads to lower cost of production. And then an iteration of how to put it into there's like a lot of things that have to happen. But then when it does, it kind of happens at once. And I would bet general purpose robotics in 10 years will be a real part of the conversation. And for some people, it becomes a matter of taste. There'll be a hotel that's fully robotic, and some people will not want to go to that hotel, and other people will. And then that will become a taste decision by consumers, not a cost of technology decision. And I would suspect that the hospitality end of things will be the thing that automates the slowest, because I suspect people will, even if the robot can emulate empathy, people will appreciate empathy from a human. And there's kind of like you can buy an IKEA couch for very little, but people still have great demand for handcrafted artisanal
Yes.
furniture. And so people will want to pay a premium for that, knowing that it's scarce and it's more expensive for a more human-led hospitality approach. I just think you can kind of borrow from other industries' experience and see how it will impact here.
You're bringing up a good point, and Sloan did too. But you know what? The missing piece here is, like, the robot will probably never have the emotional intelligence that a human inherently has, because we're social beings, right? The robot will have to be taught that, but who's teaching it? I don't know. But at the same time, this is where the training and development and change management has to come in. We want our associates to operate at a higher value level, but we've trained them right now to take 50 phone calls saying, when's the shuttle coming to pick me up at the airport? What are your restaurant hours? We've trained the staff over all these decades to answer mundane questions that are necessary for the guest, but agentic AI can handle that and handle it consistently. So let me back into this a little. Naz, like, put that slide up. You have an industry right now. We have an industry that's running 65 to 80% turnover rate. Like, there's no way a brand new desk clerk is going to know who to transfer the call to in sales. There's no way a brand new desk clerk is going to know the answer to every single question a guest might call in. Do you accept pets? What's the pet fee? What are your restaurant hours? Do you have this on your menu? Do you have a gluten-free, blah, blah, blah. But guess what? Agentic AI will answer that now consistently and take, right now we have an abandonment rate on phone calls coming into hotels of 30 to 40%. If you say a third of those, a third on the shy side, are people that want to book with you, that's $500,000 a year for a 150-room hotel running an average occupancy of 62% at an average rate. You're talking about a lot of lost money right now. And guess where they're going? Because they don't get an answer from you, they're going to the OTA. So now all you're doing is adding expense upon expense, because you're not using the tools that are available right now that are working really, really well. And I know I'm getting a little bit off robotics, but it ties together. But the agentic AI is really awesome right now. And that's what I'd FOMO into if I was an owner, because we're losing a lot of money and this pays for itself in days. not
Yeah,
weeks, months, and
And-
years.
I lean into that I do think this is a healthy debate about where robotics is going and coming, and it is going to be here faster than a lot of folks think. But in my studies and then, talking to a ton of operators at scale, the real efficiency gain right here, right now is back of office AI
Yep.
functionality. Like why do we have accounting, ARAP still being done by humans in hotels? That's not why you get in the hotel business. Let's be honest. I don't think anybody's going to lose sleep if the vast majority of all accounting functions for hotels is fully automated, and that tech fully exists
Yeah,
today.
you're right on
And,
there.
and
it's
I think
like,
that's where Roman's done, right? Roman, you've implemented that in your properties.
Yeah, that's kind of and frankly, it's meant, as I said, an elevation of the team to think about strategy and be proactive. Like now, focusing on reconciling bank accounts versus utilizing your understanding of the numbers and analysis to
Yes.
see in the moment where we can go on offense using the financial information that's available. That's a repurposing of the same skill set to a more forward-looking use, and that's what we've done. That's and I think and we've kind of gone through every back office task where it's iterative, so we're not perfect. We're continuously improving
Yep.
and work to increase automation, increase margin at the property, and frankly, increase satisfaction of the jobs by the people doing them because we take away the most mundane and least interesting and then elevate them to something that really challenges them.
I think that's a
And I
great
think
point. And since we only have a couple minutes left, I wanted to do kind of a quick speed round and get everyone's thoughts on one final question. And since we have a lot of owners in the audience, if you were advising a hotel owner today, what robotics or automation use case would you pilot first? And just like 20 seconds for each person. We could start with Ried and then go Roman, Sloan, Sue.
Sure. I mean, it's property specific, but I think again to what we were talking about earlier, taking the heavy lifting off customers or off your staff, taking away the dirty linen, the trash haul. It could be, at an event where you can now pour drinks in much quicker through robotic technologies. I do, suggest you take a look at our website. We have it all in real time, real life, connected together, and through our AI and other means. So that's what I would go with. You go for the low hanging fruit that helps your team. We're in hospitality for a reason, to help people, help your team be successful.
I would echo what I said earlier. Things that are the lightest, if you're looking to increase margin, look at night audit, accounts payable reconciliation, revenue management, that kind of thing. If you're looking to improve efficacy, look at the automating kind of, photography and video of QA in order to improve guest experience. The security cameras that Sloan articulated, totally agree, that can be enhanced by agentic. And if you're looking to improve job satisfaction at the property, look for the hardest things that a single purpose robot focused on that thing for a housekeeper or otherwise can take on, so that the team is less likely to get injured and has greater job satisfaction.
I would add, bringing AI in a meaningful way into back of house cost centers, human resources, certain functions in IT, procurement being a big, every hotel buys a lot of things, and there's some really great technology there, accounting, which has already been said. Then if it's physical robotics, I already said security, but I would double down on that point. And then if you look at every hotel in America, with a few exceptions, the largest department is housekeeping. It also is where we have some of the highest turnover. We're always struggling with call offs. I think that was said earlier. Contract labor, when you use it, tends to be 30-40% premium and a 10% lower productivity to a full-time equivalent. And I would highly, highly suggest that looking at things like Ried called out, Sue, of augmenting. You can't fully replace the housekeeper, but you can increase productivity and maybe have less housekeeping jobs, and you can for sure increase the quality of the job, draw down, risk of injury and those kind of things. And so, I think what Ried mentioned of, robots augmenting linen, those kind of things that already exist today. Look at housekeeping, because there's just so much cost at every hotel. Even select service, the biggest department is housekeeping.
And I'll just be really quick here. I'd sign up to pilot for, high volume, workflow in housekeeping in particular, like everybody kind of has been on there like that. Delivery, runner robots, anything that can mitigate injury, mitigate repetitive tasks. And then from an automation standpoint, from AI, anything that can't be seen by the guest should be automated. So all your back office functions should be automated, including maintenance work orders and all that. I mean, a housekeeper should be able to talk into a phone in their native language and tell what's wrong with the room. That should convert using AI, automatic send, not through another API, automatically send an alert to the maintenance and task it, put it in order of risk. That way, using robotics and AI, agentic AI together, will lead to better guest satisfaction, improved revenue. You're gonna, everybody's gonna win. You're gonna have a labor population will be excited about joining the hospitality industry because they don't have to do the dirty work. So that's my say on that.
Definitely. I love it. Thank you all for the quick examples. And this was such a fun conversation. Thank you for being so real and sharing your opinions. I thought it was super fun to listen to all your opinions. So thank you so much. And thanks for everyone who joined.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.
Appreciate it.
Bye.